Okay, Natalie Anderson, how you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm not too bad. How are
Good,
you?
good. I'm good. Glad to see the back of 2020. How's the year? How was the year for you? I suppose.
It's crikey. Well, basically the fact that I can hardly speak about it should say everything. It was just mind-boggling, really, in the sense that the beginning of last year seems so far away, almost like another lifetime, to be honest. And I think that juggling being a parent, running a business, being a performer, I think I was just relentless, and it it got to the point where just extremely fatigued and tired and
Hmm.
emotionally tired, and yeah, it's been tough. And yet on the flip side, there've been so many incredible positives that came from it. And I excelled in different areas that I never thought I would. And we got to spend amazing time together as a family, and there were just it was such a tale of two halves. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think it was a real test of a year.
yeah, no, absolutely. Because I mean, you left Emmerdale to kind of spend more time with your son. That was kind of the main reason, right? So I guess this year you've spent probably more time than you thought you even would with your son this year.
Yeah, I mean, I left Emmerdale nearly 6 years ago now, I think. Oh no, 5 years ago, that's right. And yeah, I left because I wasn't really seeing much of Fred, and I couldn't cope with it, to be honest. I really wanted to be a really hands-on mum. And so yeah, that was the prime reason for me leaving. And I've tried to tailor make everything that I've done actually to suit Freddie, to suit his well-being. And this year, as you say, on the one hand, I spent more time with him than ever, and on the other hand, the homeschooling nearly did me in. It was so hard, but yeah, no, it was a joy really, and because my husband, which was difficult, was on furlough, it just meant as a family, as the three of us, we did get to spend an awful lot of amazing time in the garden, particularly in the beginning part of the lockdown.
Oh, that's great. So how old is Freddie now?
He's 8 now.
8 years old. So how did he deal originally, sort of being off school? Because like, was it affecting him as well, not seeing his mates and kind of that
Oh,
socializing?
yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard on him.
Mm.
Really hard. Harder than I could have ever imagined, actually. And it was tough all round on us as a family, because we were getting very impatient with Freddie, and we couldn't really get our head round. He would have these temper tantrums, and we couldn't get our head round it. And then, because he's not normally like that at
Mm.
all. But then, after a while it dawned on me. I just thought, he's got nobody to be an 8-year old with.
Mm.
8-year olds want to talk like 8-year olds to each other, or mess about, or push each other, or rib each other, and provoke each
Yeah.
other. And bless him, when he was trying to do that to his parents, I was trying to run the business. James wasn't really sure what was happening with his job at the time. We weren't very receptive to that, if I'm honest. We were a bit like, oh, stop it, what are you doing? And so it caused quite a lot of arguments. And he found it really hard. By the end of the lockdown, he'd not seen another child for 5 months.
Yeah.
And that was really tough. And, it just not having that interaction with children, with kids of his own age. And he also went through this period, which I know a lot of other children did as well, actually, speaking to other mums, where they became very dependent. Fred was like quite independent before the lockdown, and he wanted to do everything for himself. But during the lockdown, it was like, can you put me to bed, mummy? Can you come with me, mummy? Can you come upstairs, mummy? Can we do this together, mummy? He didn't want to do anything on his own, bless his little heart. So yeah, he found it really, really hard, really hard.
Mhm. And so this year as well, like it sounds like you probably had to deal with sort of emotional burnout as well. But I guess that was kind of like different, because it sounds like the day when you were on Emmerdale, was that sort of a different type of burnout? Because it sounds, from what I know about Emmerdale, you have quite long days, don't you? It's like really early morning start till sort of late early evening. So yeah, is it like, what were the sort of the two different sort of burnouts I guess you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, from a work point of view, yeah, Emmerdale was incredibly intense, very, very intense, and particularly for me at the back end, because I'd had a newborn, and I was really intensely in storylines at that point, which was
Mhm.
incredible. And we'd been working towards that, but then to be juggling having a tiny little child as well, because I went back to work when Fred was 11 weeks old, so I didn't really take any maternity leave. Um, And that was a different kind of burnout because you had this, I had the security of my job. Basically, I knew that I had to go to work, and I knew that I was going to be paid, and I knew that, there's a different kind of burnout. And it was just the relentless filming, and also the emotionally, I was performing quite intense storylines that were very difficult, needed a lot of research. And also I was again trying to be a mum, and my body was still coming to terms with the fact that I'd had a baby.
Mhm.
So it was definitely a very difficult period in my life. And I would have to say that this year has been probably more manageable because I'd previously experienced that. Because
Yeah.
I kind of had warning signals, I knew when I was getting overtired, I could tell when I was getting frazzled, and so I was able to kind of recognize those things and try and take my foot off the gas if possible.
Mhm.
Whereas when you're a part of a machine and everybody else is, we were all in it together, and if you're the piece of the puzzle that's not really working very well, it affects everybody else. Whereas this year, because I've been running my own business and it's been in my own house, the only person it really affects is me. It doesn't kind of have that knock-on effect, so it didn't have that kind of pressure on my shoulders. But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think that time at Emmerdale really helped me to build resilience and almost gave me such an amazing toolkit for dealing with this year.
Yeah. So when you are noticing those sort of burnout warning signs, I guess, like, I guess it's all about sort of self-care and knowing what works for you to deal with that. So how do you sort of deal with those warning signs where you're like, oh, things are starting to get a bit on top of me? Is there something do you have like a routine or things that that really help you to sort of deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, getting outside is the big thing for me. It's like
Hmm.
making sure I get outside. I'm such a Yorkshire girl. I love the country air, and so I get outside when I can. But also, I stop. I just stop and I
Yeah.
go, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it. Yeah. So in past, and when I was a lot younger, especially when you're starting out in the entertainment industry, you just keep going and you just
Hmm.
keep going because you don't know where the next job's coming from. You've no idea what's next. And I've learned as I've got older that if you drop the ball, even for a day or two, nobody else is really, it's not really going to make much difference to anybody else's life. You feel like it will, but it actually won't. It's like if you stop and turned your phone off, if you told people and just said, oh, I'm just, if you can't get hold of me today, I'm just a bit busy doing X, Y, and Z, or I'm just taking a moment to myself. As long as you've let people know so they don't worry about you, then more often than not, I think that you you just need to listen to your body and you need to stop. That's it. That's the biggest thing I can say, really, and it's the biggest thing that I've learned because I found it so hard to do in the beginning. But with my own podcast, which I speak to kind of inspirational women and entrepreneurs and stuff, and one of the biggest things that I've learned is the women that are performing at the top always say they either outsource things or they take, they might work 4 days a week instead of doing the full 7 days a week, or
Hmm.
they might just say, right, I'm not doing that now. And that's the real key to having enough energy because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose since post Emmerdale, what you've been doing really is you've been sort of more focused on your business, so you're writing as well now, and you're
Mhm.
podcasting. Kind of let people know that perhaps aren't aware, like what kind of things you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, crikey, I left Emmerdale. It feels to me such a lifetime ago now because I went straight back into theatre because that's kind of where my career started was
Hmm.
in the theatre. So I went straight back into the West End for a bit and then did a few other bits and bats, kind of a touring but then in 2018, so I'd been doing a lot of theatre for like 3 years post Emmerdale, and then in 2018, my son was 5 then, and it was the tour that really made me sit up again and go, okay, now we need to shift again because now he's at a different age and now different
Mm.
things are going on. So, for example, he was at school then and he was struggling. It was hard. His mummy wasn't there, and he he just needed that little bit of support. And not to say that my husband wasn't giving him that; he absolutely was, but it just made me go, actually, now we're at a different milestone in Fred's life, so now we change things up again. And then that made me come home and really want to be at home. And I think developing the business so that I could work more from home, from my own house, has been amazing, really. And more than anything, that's what 2020 really proved to me, was that I could work so easily from home and do the school run, do packed lunches, be there all the time, and yet equally still be able to kind of fulfill my passions, you know, write, record podcasts, do live streams from home. You know, we've written a couple of other television projects as well that we were able to do. We did so much of the prep for it, and so much of the like development stages on Zoom. So it was just like amazing, really, how I think it's always good to kind of reassess where you are and just, you know, change things up to suit your family.
Yeah, because I suppose as Freddie was getting a bit older and you were sort of busy away, whether it be with Emmerdale or theatre stuff, and you sort of, you know, seeing him grow up, I guess you kind of think, actually, no, I want a bit of that. I kind of want to do the mum thing as well. Maybe
well, that's the thing, though, is that for me, that's Fred's always been the priority. Like, always, from the minute he arrived, it's always been really about him. And everything that I've done since he's been around is I've tried to, as much as I can, straddle being a really hands-on mum with fulfilling the things that I want to do, but more than anything, it will always be him that takes precedence over everything else. Because the fact is, if I'm away on tour and I'm miserable because I'm missing my son, then I don't perform very well. So ultimately, it has to start with our relationship and where we're at with that. Because I can only go off and do other things if I'm genuinely feeling happy in my heart that I feel like a good mum.
Yeah, and as you say, you've done, you know, a lot of theatre as well. Am I right in thinking you did Wicked? You were in Wicked?
Yes, I did
Yes.
Wicked.
Oh,
I
I
did
loved
that
Wicked.
for a year.
What was that experience like being in Wicked? Because I mean, that's like sort of grown into this whole thing on its own. It's sort of, you know, it's still going. I don't know how many years it's been on stage now, but yeah, absolute massive success, Wicked, isn't
I
it?
think it's its 13th birthday now. I was one of the very early casts, actually. I think I was the second or third cast. It was bittersweet for me, actually, was Wicked. It was amazing in the sense that I got to fulfill one of my childhood dreams of being on the West End stage, and it was absolutely amazing. But I just got married 6 months before that. And
Right.
so I spent my first year of marriage seeing my husband one day a week, because
Oh,
he was
wow.
up in Leeds and I was down in London in
Yeah.
like a little flat. And so that was a real tough time for us. You know, we were newlyweds, but we were living completely separate lives at that point almost. And we did everything that we could to kind of, you know, see each other and speak to each other. But we didn't really have like FaceTime then. We didn't do Zoom. It was basically a text message and a phone call and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was bittersweet. I had the most amazing cast, amazing friends, brilliant to be out there entertaining like 3,000 people every night, standing ovations every night. And yeah, it was brilliant. But again, for me, it had that thing of I was a bit sad as well. And I think that's what the other thing about the industry, it's taught me, is that your job is fabulous and it's amazing, but ultimately you need to kind of protect your little bubble as well, because it's that more than anything that fulfills you. It's that, you know, whether it's a relationship or whether it's, you know, whatever it is. For me personally, that's what I need, is I need to kind of be settled in that sense, and then I go off and do a better job.
Yeah, because you have to make a lot of sacrifices, don't you? Like to get to be in the performing arts industry, because you know your social life kind of has to go out the window as well. Like Wicked, I don't know how many shows you're doing. Well, you know, a week. How many is it? Like
So 8 shows a week,
8 shows a
and
week. Yeah.
yeah, so like 8 shows a week, you don't get to go out. You know, and again, on the Saturday nights when everybody else went out, I was like literally straight home, because I'd be on the first train home on a Sunday up to Leeds, and then I'd be in Leeds for less than 24 hours and back straight down again on the Monday afternoon. So not even like a full 24-hour turnaround. So yeah, you do have to make a lot of sacrifices. And I genuinely didn't mind the not going out bit. That didn't really bother me. I often think it's the being away from home. That's the hardest bit, I think. But, you know, we make it work. And it's like, I went and did a job in Australia for 2 weeks when Fred was about 4, I think. And with FaceTime and technology, it's made it so much easier for us. I think short stints, you know, the shorter stints are better, because you can go and be really intense, and then you can see your family, and then you get to go home again. And I think a lot of people probably do that in our industry.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Because I mean, even with I suppose when you're having that routine of 8 shows a week, do you kind of get in that routine? Because like I think for your body wise, it's like quite a difficult routine to get into as well. Like I've done a bit of this like pantomimes and stuff. But even when you're doing like a late show, and you're like you see you're having that standing ovation, your adrenaline sometimes could be way up here, and it's like I can't go to sleep now. Was your body kind of able to deal with that routine easily, or was it
Yeah,
difficult?
I think because I'd been doing that since I was a kid. So
Yeah.
because I'd been like training since I was young. I mean, when we were at school, I went to an amazing performing arts school, absolutely brilliant. And my school day started at 6:15 in the morning because I travelled from Bradford to the other side of Leeds to go to school from
Oh,
being
wow.
11. And so I had to get up really early, all the way through the horrible winter, dark mornings. And then we'd have to do all our schoolwork and everything, but then after school we'd always have some kind of show that we were rehearsing or exams or something, and most of the time we wouldn't finish school till around about 8 o'clock at night, and then you've got to
Oh,
do all your homework.
yeah.
So I was so used to working really, really long hours from being a child, really, and just having to kind of manage your body in terms of the whole grueling schedule, because it's what I knew. It
Hmm.
genuinely, it's what I knew. The difficult thing for me was going from a filming schedule which starts very early in the morning. Again, you're leaving the house at maybe 6:30 every morning, and then you might not rock up home until 8 o'clock at night. Now with the theatre, you don't really go to work until 5 o'clock at night, and then you don't get in till late. And so that was a really weird adjustment period, going from kind of television really early mornings to the theatre really late nights. It was like, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. That was the tough bit.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So when did your performing sort of career start then? Like, because were you someone that was as a really young girl, you really interested in doing that? Like, that was your thing, or how did it all
Yeah,
start for you?
I knew from being about, I must have been about 4 or 5. My granddad, who pretty much kind of brought me up. My parents had me very young and they separated very young. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents whilst my parents were working separately. And my granddad, who was like my biggest inspiration in life, his hobby and his passion was films like from the 30s and the 40s, and in particular musicals. So people like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Rita Hayworth,
Dean
Judy
Kelly.
Garland,
Yeah,
all of those.
yeah.
I literally lived on all of those kind of films. That's all I consumed. We watched them every night after school, every weekend. And I just saw this amazing technicolor life, and I wanted to be part of it. And so from being really little, I just wanted to sing and dance. And bless him, my granddad used to take me to all my dancing classes and like my drama clubs and stuff. And he would sit there with his book with all the other like stagey mums. My granddad would sit in the corner with his little book, bless him, reading. And yeah, so it was him really that kind of started me on that path. And I think then my music teacher at my first school, she'd said to my mum and to my grandparents that I naturally kind of had a thing for performing and especially for singing, and so she encouraged me and gave me like leading parts in the school play, and then from that I then, like I said, transferred across to my school in Leeds. So it's kind of just been my whole life
Oh
basically.
wow, yeah. So like when you got to sort of like a teenager, sort of going into early 20s, is there ever sort of like difficult moments? Because there feels like sometimes with some people I've met, they sort of say about involved in quite a sort of bitchy, cutthroat industry, and it can get really difficult and lots of pressures, sort of being to look a certain way or whatever it is. Did you ever have to do anything like that? Those pressures when you were sort of maybe sort of a teenager going into as a young woman?
Yeah, I think I very luckily got my first job at the BBC when I was 14, nearly 15.
Hmm.
And it was the time like the Spice Girls like burst onto the scene and Billie Piper was on the scene, and then as we went through the next couple of years, Britney came onto the scene, and it was more, I didn't feel pressure from anyone around me, as in like the, you know, the programs that I was working with and all that. It was more just general, I think general teenage stuff of, you know, you're on the telly and you get on the bus with your mates from, you know, you're going to town with your mates from school, and suddenly everybody on the bus knows who you are. And that was very strange to kind of adapt to as a teenager. I did find that very difficult at times, like people knowing who I was. And that made me become a bit shyer, actually. I was really uber confident as a child, but then as I got into my teens, I think I started to withdraw just a bit and just become a little bit more introvert, I think, just because having all that attention on you as a teenager was quite difficult.
Hmm.
But I've got such the most incredible parents, you see, and like my mum especially. When I'd come back from filming in London, my mum would have me be really grounded. And like I'd come back from London with a bit of a London accent. And she'd be like, "What are you doing?" "I don't think so, lady. Get in that kitchen and get the washing up done." She kept my feet on the ground. And I think because of that, because my parents were so hands-on, and again, my grandparents, it protected me and put me in a lovely bubble so that it allowed me to grow naturally, and like it was okay for me to step away from the limelight a bit. And we didn't have social media then either, so you know, we didn't have all that intrusion. We didn't have Twitter. It was more so just going out on the street. We didn't have anything that was like online or anything. It was, so I was able to be quite protected. And I think it was only really after I left drama school that I kind of was more confident, kind of putting myself out there. I put myself out there when I did Pop Idol, but again, that was my mum that did that. She was like, "I've entered you into this competition." I was like, "What are you talking about? It's like Pop Stars but for soloists." And I was like, "What is she on about?" But I didn't do that, and I don't know if I would have done that. It was my mum that did that, because those earlier teenage years and my experience of being known on the street, it did scare me a little bit, and it gave me an insight into what fame on a grand scale could be like. I mean, what I experienced was minute, but
Yeah.
it definitely gave me an idea of what huge fame could be like, and I did find it quite scary, to be honest.
Yeah, 'cause especially as a teenage girl, like imagine, like, you know, you've got people your own age, sort of like, are you their, you know, are you their friend, or are you just, you know, or they kind of just, it's just Natalie, it's, you know, it's Natalie off the telly. I want to sort of, you know,
Yeah.
be around Natalie because she's on the TV. So is it, was it kind of hard to, I guess, know where you stood with some people when you were that age? You know, just knowing who was true, he just into you as a person rather than Nat off
Yeah,
the telly.
definitely. And also, as well, you know, I'm so lucky. My best friends now are the same best friends that I had during that period.
Oh,
But
great.
it was difficult because also, you know, we all went to school at the same time together. So then when one of your friends gets a job and you're all gunning for the same job as a group of young women, there's also a little bit of rivalry in there. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so that was tough on us as a friendship group. But what I love about my best friends is that we've gone through so much together. We've been on so many journeys together, and you know, sometimes one person's been in the limelight and the others haven't, and then it changes dead quick, and then somebody else gets a job and somebody else ends up on the West End and somebody else does X, Y, and Z. The friendship that we built as teenage girls, whether it was bitching, carrying on, you know, ribbing each other,
Hmm.
falling out with each other, now as women approaching our 40s, the love that we have for each other is just immense. And I'm so grateful to those girls, because they were there for me in whichever capacity. You know, I'm so grateful that we had that rock solid foundation, even from back then, so long ago. It's like my best friend, it was her birthday not long ago, and I was like, 28 years we've been friends, you know. And do you remember that time we had a fight at school? You know, just, but yeah, it was difficult. And even in later life, those same girls have always been the one to point out other people and gone, you know, don't rely on that person so much, or I'm not really sure about that person's, you know, agenda with you. And I just think as long as I've always got them, I've always got true, real friends.
Yeah. Do you all keep each other quite grounded as well, I suppose? Like,
Oh
grow.
yeah. Yeah, we do, but that's the great thing. It's like we can rib each other, and we can, you know, have proper banter, and they will always take it with a pinch of salt because we've gone through all that phase as kids. You know, we've done all that. So now things that used to really upset us when we might have been 15, 16, like, oh, why would you say that? Now we've laughed hilariously at it. Yeah, no, I genuinely have the best group of girlfriends.
That's great. And sort of transitioning from, your time on Emmerdale and acting, and you're now doing some writing and podcasting. Do you find that all quite therapeutic? Like with the writing, that when you're writing your articles, or whether you're podcasting and talking to people, it's it's almost like it's cheaper than any sort of therapy that you have, because it's just you just kind of getting your shit out there, isn't it?
Definitely. I always said to my friend, like the series one that we did last year, I was like, wow, it's like been amazing therapy. You know, it's been brilliant because especially because when we first started the first series of the podcast, there were three of us actually, three women together, chit-chatting away. I said, wow, it's like we've had group therapy, and yeah, it's been amazing. But also I've learned so much as well. And I think something else that about me is that I really enjoy learning, and I loved school, not just because it was a performing arts school, but there were so many other subjects that I was really interested in. I loved English. I loved learning about plays, I suppose. I loved learning about authors. I loved geography. There were so many things that really interested me. And the podcast allows me to really explore that side of my personality, that I get to meet the most incredible women and hear their fascinating stories of how they've achieved greatness, or how they've battled adversity and how they've built businesses from like having £10 in the bank or something. And I just find that so incredibly inspiring. And that's what I've loved so much about the podcast, is that it's really helped me open my eyes to different kinds of people, to lots of different learnings and teachings, and to have a wider perspective on life and on the world. And I've really enjoyed that. And I think that, going forward, it's definitely something that I want to continue doing. And with the business that I started, it really adds to that, because it gives me a deeper insight into what women might be looking for, or, guidance that they might need, or because I'm learning from other people.
Yeah. So, well, tell us a little bit about the business that you've got going on at the minute. Because I've checked out your website and had a little look myself. So yeah, it all sounds really interesting. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Capsule is kind of a well-being platform. It's almost like an online magazine. And originally when I started it as a blog, as a fashion blog. And the reason it's called the Capsule is because originally it was about a capsule wardrobe. So way back when I was training, I worked at Hobbs. So I just did, all the shop jobs.
Yeah.
And in that job, my manager taught me about the importance of a capsule wardrobe and how you should never spend too much. And if you're going to spend wisely. You should always have like 10 pieces in your wardrobe, and they should be wearable forever and a day. Great pair of black shoes, great little black dress, fabulous coat. And that really stuck in my head. And so I've always applied that going through my life. So this fashion blog, I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to talk about, like the basics. And then that was kind of on and off for a couple of years. I started it just a year after I left Emmerdale, because I was doing a lot of fashion writing then. And basically after that, I went through this period of suffering from really severe anxiety in 2018 when I was away actually, and my son was struggling. And all the things that helped me, all the practices or products, I wanted to then recommend them to other people. So I thought, oh, well, actually, I could use this platform, this website that I've created, and not just talk about fashion. I could talk about well-being, and I could talk about things that might actually help people, and help people struggling with depression or anxiety, or, they've got concerns. And so that's kind of how the business then completely changed direction. And that really became my focus, was women's well-being and women's health, because it was something that I was going through. And so any discovery that I made, I was able to share it. And the reaction that I got from that online was amazing. Suddenly people were visiting the website in the middle of the night. And, I did a piece on crystal healing, and that went through the roof. And I was like, wow, there's really something here that's missing. People are genuinely need some help, and they need support, and they need information. But I wanted to package it that it was almost, it didn't feel too, what's the word, holistic, I suppose, or alternative health, which I think can put some people off. So I packaged it like almost like a glamorous magazine, so like fashiony type.
Yeah.
And I think that really intrigued people, because actually underneath all the glamour and the glitz and everything, you'll find most women are struggling in some way with some form of stress, guilt, motherly guilt. So it was just a nice way to kind of get people in and let them feel comfortable and give them some information. And then that kind of spurred on the podcast and live events and other things that I do.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. So, I mean, when you were dealing with your sort of spell with anxiety, was that something that you were able to share, or did you keep it in for quite a while? Because that's it. That tends to be a lot of the thing that people struggle with most is that I always think of it of Aladdin, when it's like the genie in the lamp, and it's just like the genie in the lamp just wanting to break free, just like get it out there and just kind of say how you're really feeling. So like when you were going through that, was it something that you felt difficult to explain at first?
Yeah, it was very difficult because I'd lived with it for years and years and years, like for many years. And I think my performing kind of experience and the terror sometimes of things going wrong on stage, I think it had all chipped away at me bit by bit by bit. But so I never talked about it, because I always thought, especially then, a good 10 years ago, anxiety and depression and mental health wasn't freely talked about like it is now. We've come so far, and I always felt like if you give somebody a glimmer that you can't keep it all together, then you're unprofessional, or you're unreliable, or you're a liability. So there's just keep your mouth shut, basically, just get on with it. And even if you're suffering inside, tough. And that's kind of how we were schooled as well, was like, it just, the show goes on and that's it, get on with it. So I never talked about it for a very, very, very long time, until I did my very first live event with the Capsule, which was in 2019. It was in September. And I'd invited all these women, and we had these beautiful pop-up shops, but I wanted it to be an open conversation about well-being and protecting your mental health and wellness. So my friend said to me, you do realise you're going to have to tell your bit of this story? And I was like, no, I don't really, do I? And they were like, well, yeah, because you have to explain why you've invited all these people together, and, what's your motivation behind this? And so I was on stage, and I just had to, it was like, again, being in group therapy. I was like, hello, my name's Natalie, and I suffer really badly from anxiety. And I just started crying. And honestly, all the amazing women in the room, I think there was about 100 women in the room, they were like, oh, that's me, and that's me, and that's me. And it was just the most incredible, beautiful evening. And it was so special. And everyone that came away from it just said what an amazing event it was. And honestly, since that day, it built my confidence. I didn't feel like I was going to get laughed at. I know now that I'm kind of so much more healed from it, because I don't cry every time I say it. They always say, don't they, when you stop crying about it, when you're saying it, then you've come a long way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel now, is that if I was about to tell you that I had anxiety then, even a year ago, I would have had a massive lump in my throat. Whereas now I'm like, it's part of who I am, and I suffer from it from time to time. I manage it, I get on with it. It sometimes gets the better of me, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the acknowledgement of saying that this is part of who I am has allowed me to not feel weird or strange, or like there's something seriously wrong with me, because there isn't something seriously wrong with me. I just happen to suffer from anxiety from time to time. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that learning, and that group of women, that helped me get over that hurdle, is so much what kind of pushes me on and makes me so focused about the business and about helping other people in the same situation. Because I'm always like, you're only a sentence away from actually feeling better. All you need to just say is like, own it and just let it be part of you, and honestly, you'll be so much better.
No, yeah, absolutely. Have you found this year, especially, well, 2020 especially, like this last year, that people have sort of been coming forward a lot more because they have been dealing with that, lots more anxiety, sort of the fear of the unknown, and sort of being alone, and loneliness and depression? Have you seen that with your work?
Definitely, so much. And I think that not just me, lots of people actually have tried to use their platforms to open up conversations. I know that back in March when the first lockdown happened, me and a few other people that kind of were doing the same kind of work as me were doing like live streams on Instagram, you know, getting people to join in and saying, say hi, and, you know, let's have a chat about this, or let's open the lid on that. Who's feeling bad today? Kind of hands up, so that it became a much more open conversation, because this year, when people have been isolated and they haven't been able to get out and they've been on their own with their own thoughts, it's been very, very difficult. You know, the suicide rates of this year have just been absolutely astounding,
scary,
and terrifying. And, you know, people again being alone with their own thoughts and not having that outlet, not being able to reach out, or feeling frightened or feeling silly and scared. And I wanted to just make it as free and easy as possible and as frank as possible. So, you know, for somebody to say, oh gosh, I'm having really bad anxiety today. You know, I think I almost in the same sense of saying, I've got a really bad headache today. Make it that normal, so that somebody else who's sat at home with worrying thoughts doesn't feel strange, or doesn't feel, you know, like alone. They could go, oh yeah, that's me as well, I've got it too today, my heart's pounding, you know. I wanted to kind of just try and open things up, because I definitely saw so much this year, people really, really struggling. So for me, the more we can normalize these things and these conditions and, you know, experiences, the easier it will be for people to come forward and just, you know, put their hand up too and go, yeah, me as well. And then all of a sudden, it might be a huge weight off their shoulders.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think as well that sometimes it's about what you let into your space as well, like good and bad. Because I mean, if you watch I try and avoid the news now, because I mean, if you watch the news for half an hour, you will be depressed after you watch half an hour. You know, you've got COVID, Brexit, stuff going on with Trump, and the divide that you know, George Floyd, that horrific way he was killed, and divide that's caused, and the sort of divisions between groups. Like, you watch the news for half an hour, you're thinking, wow, the world's pretty shit.
Yeah.
You know, and you will feel a bit rubbish and, you know, anxious about things the more you let that into your space, I think.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we talked about a lot, and have talked so much about all year, and even articles that we've put out on the Capsule website have been about how to protect your digital well-being, you know, how to kind of have a toolkit that you can look after yourself with. So, for example, especially when we were in the height of the pandemic and the lockdown, and as you said, in June, when we had Trump and we had the protests and we had so much going on and it was so angsty, like, the advice that we were giving out was basically, look, check into the news maybe once during the day. Don't doom scroll. Don't be on your phone constantly, because it's doom scrolling. You know, fill your feed with things that are uplifting, things that make you laugh, things that, you know, completely curate your social media feed. If things are making you feel anxious or causing you concern, the minute you look at it, filter it out. Put things in front of you that make you feel good, that make you feel happy, that make you feel positive, and that should keep you up whilst you're kind of in that isolation period. And then also, so many lovely like groups and forums sprung up as well. You know, there's one that my friend actually started called The Good Thing Is Though, and it was a Facebook group, and she was like, well, this is rubbish, isn't it? But the good thing is though, and then now she's amassed something like 15,000 people in her group on Facebook, and they're supporting Childline and amazing charities, and that community has really grown. And again, people chit chat to each other, and that's been lovely. And I think that's the other thing, is that, you know, you have to kind of protect yourself and know when to say no as well, and put your boundaries up and say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming into that. I'm not engaging with some kind of political argument on Facebook or anything. Just don't get involved. Look after yourself, and look after those around you, like your bubble. And it's not being frivolous, but just try and fill it with as much joy as you can find.
Did you ever find it difficult to say no? I was someone that really used to find it hard to say no. I'm a bit better now, but like, I used to always be like, oh, I really don't want to say no, and it can be really hard. But, you know, you can't allow that sometimes, because it will just against your well-being and your better judgment. Sometimes it's yeah, it's not a good decision.
It's hard, and for many, many years, I mean, by nature, I'm a people pleaser, and I just
Yeah.
want to go, yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do
Hmm.
it, I'll do it. But then I ended up getting to the point where I was so exhausted and crying and nervous and worried and again
Hmm.
anxious. And, you know, again, through the podcast, learning from other women of going, it's okay to say no,
Hmm.
don't worry about it. Nobody's going to hate you for it. Nobody's going to not be your friend, you know, and the right people, what's the saying is, those that matter, no,
I know exactly what you're trying
you
to.
know which saying it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
like,
It's
those that matter don't mind, and those
yeah.
that mind don't matter.
Yeah, yes,
It's
and
that.
there's that one as well that I was thinking of. Don't chase people because the people that matter will stay, and the people that won't. And yeah, that was a really
It's
nice
that
quote.
thing of going that
Yeah.
people will, if they're your true friends, people will understand. You're not a horrible person, you're a good person. So if you've had to say no, there's a reason for that. So
Hmm.
they'll understand. And if the people don't understand that, then they don't know you very well. So, you know, maybe that's not such a bad thing that you're saying no to them. So the
Yeah.
kind of, that's something that, but again, I've only really started to kind of claim that this year. Like, and I'm nearly 40, you know, 40 in 2021. So it's taken me a long time to start to say no.
Well, we're happy 40th for next year for
Yeah,
20,
thank you.
2021. At least it wasn't 2020 you were celebrating your
I
40th in.
know, crikey.
So yeah, with the capsule and stuff, I sort of got the sense as we were writing, so sort of inner peace is a really big thing for you when you're writing about that. And was there a moment where you really felt like you achieved that, and what kind of helped you get there, I suppose? And you think, you know what, because I think peace is just so underrated, and we talk about suicides going up and stuff, and especially with young people, whether it be teenage girls or I mean, older men. You know, I feel like people are kind of searching for the wrong things. There's so many people. When I do school tours and stuff, I say to kids, "So what do you want to do when you're older?" And the amount of people that say, "I want to be an Instagram model or a
Hmm.
YouTuber," for kids now,
Hmm.
what happened to wanting to be a vet and things like this? You know, a nurse. Like, it's scary. People that kind of feel like this is what they need to strive to be, is someone that's got lots of followers on
Hmm.
Instagram, and that will make them happy. If I'm famous, if I'm on a reality TV show or whatever, that will make me happy. And but I think even when you see programs like Love Island and stuff, and there's been a few contestants on that show. The sad thing with Caroline Flack, but they have
Hmm.
ended up, you know, ending their own lives. There is everyone's sort of searching, thinking, well, fame will make me happy, or this or a X, Y, and Z will make me happy. But really, it's just unless you have that inner peace within yourself, like that's the thing that you is the first and foremost. Because I've been there. I'm thinking if I have this, I'll be happy, but there's still something missing. I can't figure out what it is, and you actually, it's just kind of be in your truer self and find that inner peace within yourself.
Definitely. I think, as I said earlier, being in the spotlight at 15, that being very frightened of fame, it straight away from a young age, I had it in the back of my head that being famous wouldn't necessarily equate to being happy. And, you know, and as it happened, I was very fortunate in my career that I was able to experience, you know, being massively famous at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and fame and success equally are two different things. You know, you can be really famous and it can seem like you're very successful, but are you really successful if you're not happy? So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the thing, is that, you know, even making the decision to leave Emmerdale, and people were like, "You're crazy, what are you doing that for? You know, you're leaving this amazing job." And I was like, well, as a mum, I'm not happy, and all the money and accolade and everything in the world is not going to change kind of how I'm feeling if I'm not feeling happy at home, and that I'm not being the kind of mum that I wanted to be, that I dreamed about. And so, you know, I think that my mum always said to me that better to be successful than famous. You know, successful
Mm-hmm.
people kind of go about their business and nobody really knows about it and nobody writes about them, and you know, there's not all that pressure on them and stuff. I think that always rang true with me. And again, success doesn't have to equate to money at all. It could just be that sense of happiness. And you know, there have been parts of 2020 where I felt incredibly successful, in the sense that I've been able to kind of, you know, be the kind of mum that I wanted to be, and yet have an amazing guest on my podcast that I've maybe admired for years and years and years, and just think, you know what? People might not have a clue what I'm doing right now. They might not, and they might not care, and people might not want to write about me or whatever. I'm not really that bothered. What makes me happy and sleeping at night is that my little boy comes up to me and goes, "Mummy, I really love you." And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. And you know, and then equally, your person that I might have interviewed said, "Oh, you did a great job." That to me is like, oh, wow, you know, it's, I think that's it. I think it's having those little things in you that can make you feel like you've done a good job. You know, it's not necessarily about having, like you said, like thousands and thousands and thousands of followers or loads and loads and loads of money, because money can come and go very quickly. You know, stardom definitely comes and goes very quickly. You know, 1 minute you're up there and the next you're not, and then you are and then you're not. So you've got to be careful with that, because the entertainment industry, and also we're breeding a very fickle society. You know, the minute... So, you see it with the jungle, you know, every year it's somebody else's turn for like a whole year, and you're like, oh, well, your year's up now, see ya. You know, that's the kind of, it's the merry-go-round, isn't it? And if you're prepared for that, and if you know that, then that's great, that's fine. But if you're not really prepared for that, then it can be a massive shock, and it can be very scary. And as you said, with the young people at Love Island, which has just been so tragic, in the sense that I don't think they were equipped for the highs and the lows of fame. And actually, it's not about being famous. I think, again, it's an idea of having that happiness. What really makes you happy? As in, I can feel like my most fulfilled on a walk on a Sunday out near where I live, near where I grew up, with my husband and my son. That's probably the times that I feel the most happy, because ultimately I just feel like myself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think with Love Island as well, we had Jess and Pizia on, and she mentioned when she was on X on the Beach, I think that's what, on MTV, and she was really aware that, you know, she was very, very famous when that TV show finished, and then when it kind of fizzled out and there was a new series of it, no one cared anymore, and it was just like, wait, I've kind of been this personality for you on TV that everyone wanted to know, and now no one's interested anymore, and it kind of left. I think kind of left the thinking, well, who am I then? You know, where's that worth or that happiness that I had gone? And really, I think, especially younger people, are just focusing in the wrong places where that real sense of peace and happiness is.
But it's easily done in this particular society, in this generation. It's so easily done, because that's what worth is built on. It's built on how many followers, how many likes, how many subscribers. Because unfortunately, that's the way business is happening. You know, I'm just as guilty of it in terms of trying to grow my business.
Exactly,
you know,
yeah.
You need so many followers to follow your business, to be taken seriously. It's very difficult. But I think that you have to question what your ethos is. And even with my own personal social media and with the capsules, we try to keep a balance. I think it's about having a balance. You know, I can equally put on a picture of me with absolutely zero makeup on, saying, this is what I actually look like, and then a photo that's been done professionally in a studio. You know, the two things can exist next to each other. It's just making sure that your people do see both. Do you see what I mean? And so they can see the highs and they see the lows, or they see, you know, with us at the Capsule, we talk about, again, fashion, but we talk about trying to make it sustainable. So, you know, if you're going to invest in the right stuff rather than buy. You know, make people feel guilty if they're seen in the same thing twice. No, we're not doing that. Wear the same thing that you've just bought, because actually you just spent a lot of money on it. You know, make sure you get the wear out of it. Yeah, do you see what I mean? It's about balance, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what are your kind of plans or goals for 2021?
Well, we put a lot of pieces in place in 2020, so we're hoping that there'll be a few things that really land this year. There's a television project that I've been working on, which I've co-written with a dear friend of mine, and I can't really say too much about that, but ultimately it could come into fruition. into the next 2 years, so that we've taken a massive leap forward, because that project's taken us 3 years to get off the ground. So that's a big thing. And then we'll have series 4 of my podcast, which is the Capsule in Conversation. That will be starting kind of towards the end of January, beginning of February. So that's, and we've already got some amazing guests booked for that, and the lineup's looking absolutely brilliant. Again, people that I've really admired for many, many years, and you kind of go, oh my God, you've said yes to me, you know, and you have a pinch me moment. So that's happening. And then there's again, growing the website. There's loads more to come that we weren't able to do in 2020. I'd love to be able to get back out on the road again with the Capsule live events, which is what we started in 2019 and the early part of 2020. We'd had a whole load of events, live events planned, you know, potential touring of the podcast as well. So there's lots of stuff kind of in the pipeline for the next year to 2 years. So it's just seeing how we kind of, you know, maneuver it all. And more than anything, I think just going at a pace that is kind of, no, I don't want to rush anything. And again, it has to suit my family. So if it takes a little longer to get things off over the line, then so be it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I suppose the Emmerdale fans wouldn't forgive me if I didn't ask the inevitable question. Do you see yourself going back to Emmerdale in the future? Do you miss your character? Do you miss them?
I loved my character so much, and it's so funny. Somebody asked me about this the other day, and I was like, I don't even think I'd know how to play her. I really had. It's been half a decade now since I said goodbye to her, and I think like my life has evolved so much and gone in a different direction. Don't get me wrong, Alicia will always, always be part of me, and half of me is very intrigued to see what she would be like now, or even in the future. You know, there is always definitely going to be that part of me that's like, oh, there might be more to explore with her, you know, in terms of, especially for me as a performer as well, because I feel like life experience and the chucking around of life, you know, that batters you around a bit, and you go, oh, right, well, I've got new experiences now. I could bring this to this character. So I'm always going to be intrigued by her, and I'd always love to kind of revisit her at some point, but imminently, not just yet. But I'm never going to say never.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to answer the question for sure. I think you'll keep people happy with that. So yeah, where can people follow you or the Capsule stuff? Where can they follow your stuff online?
Yes, so if they want to go to the Capsule website, it is www.thecapsule.co.uk, and on the website you can see all the articles, fashion, beauty, wellbeing, but you can also subscribe to our podcast, which is the Capsule in Conversation, which you can find across all major podcast channel platforms. And then you can find us on Instagram @officialcapsule, or me. I've just forgotten what my own Capsule Instagram handle is. I don't even know what it is. What is it? Nat J Anderson. But yeah, so that's kind of where you can find me.
Brilliant. Well, Natalie, it's been great talking to you today. Best of luck for 2021, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to speak to you again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to spend time with you.
Cheers. Thank you.